So far, all systems go, Joe.
Okay.
UFO story is all about nukes. We have things that defy the laws of physics and no physicists. Post-Einstein, post-relativity. That's what I do. So it used to be the case that physics was something that was like interesting and fun. But now it's like the most deadly thing you can imagine. We all want to survive, Joe. I mean, this is a real problem. So you and I can hate on the institutions all we want from the safety of the JRE. But what are you going to do when it becomes really, really easy for people to commit like mass murder? It's very hard to kill large numbers of people using things like bullets. If you're not tracking everybody at my level, what are you doing as an intelligence service?
The missing scientist?
Yeah.
The missing scientist narrative.
There's a lot of murder in math and physics, first of all. People don't really appreciate that. The Unabomber was a famous PhD mathematician. So there's an incredible amount of murder. So first of all, there's just a lot of death because mathematicians and physicists are somewhat close to unhinged. You spend that much time in your head? I'm amazed that I'm as well-grounded as I am. You're just way out in the stratosphere. I completely forget who I am, where I am, that I'm even a human being. Not everybody can handle it. Our minds are more perfect. The messiness of the world and the perfection of our minds is at odds with each other. The Unabomber had really interesting points. He wasn't a dumb guy. He was really correctly... he has an amazing story called Ship of Fools. I highly recommend anybody read it. Just the way Charles Manson's Look at Your Game Girl is a great song. It's a great song.
Okay.
Yeah. So to get back to the missing scientist narrative, but physics is more dangerous. Like, I always wonder why they allow me to come on the JRE and say stuff.
So these specific scientists that are missing.
One thing that's very clear to me is that when I hear something from many sources, I don't need to protect it anymore. It's already out. Okay. I have now heard the White Sands story from many sources.
This is the one where the crafts hovered over the base, shut down the nuclear program. Is that it?
I'm just going to say what I can say that's fuzzed out that can't be traced to anybody.
Okay.
I was very upset with this shutdown of the El Paso airspace.
That was recently.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. We had a problem with cartel drones.
Right.
I don't believe that. I think Texas is another name for New Mexico. I think El Paso is a name for White Sands. Can we get a map of the United States that can focus on White Sands and El Paso? I think we have a problem that we've lost control of our airspace. New Mexico is the connector of the nuclear story, the Epstein story, and the UFO story. They're all going to come together. Okay.
Very weird.
We keep turning the Epstein story into something other than a scientific espionage story, which is one of its facets.
It's one component.
It's one component.
Right.
Control of science, Joe, is not something that is officially a big issue, and it is a massive issue. And why did he buy the house, Zorro Ranch? To be close to the scientists whose funding was cut. The people who make weapons and who do high-energy physics. Like, there's no thing more important than theoretical physicists, you idiots. That's what he was doing. He was buying a property to be close to the national labs in New Mexico that make the weapons and that are in charge of trying to figure out the future. Epstein set up a listening post. Now, what's the UFO story? The UFO story is all about nukes. And what was Epstein doing in Cambridge, Massachusetts? The analog of Zorro Ranch is named One Brattle Square. It's right in the heart of Harvard Square. I know it like the back of my hand. You're talking about a guy who was setting up listening posts next to extremely sensitive stuff that we've stupidly left unprotected in the open university system. Joe, you've got real money. Guys with real money use dinner. Dinner is an incredible thing. I watched Peter Thiel use dinner. Fly people in for dinners. You put people up in a nice hotel for 3 nights. You serve them amazing food from a private chef. You get a black car to collect them, and they'll tell you anything. I don't mean that Peter was doing this in an evil way, but I watched dinner after dinner after dinner as people disgorged all they knew because they were so happy that they're getting a $200 bottle of wine and being treated like humans, like respected. So in part, you have to understand that dinner in and of itself, or a mansion, or a first-class ticket, is all it takes to get people to start talking.
The DOJ's own file showed Epstein built a military-grade encrypted link to satellite orbit at Zorro Ranch. The contractor who built it now holds a Pentagon missile defense contract. They're just being ignorant.
No, they're being a bitch because it used to be super dangerous. I'm a little bit nervous. Why was Jeffrey Epstein able to get all of these people much richer than him into his orbit? That's the question you should be asking. Just be careful. Okay. We didn't know how deadly physics was. When Rutherford in 1911 said that there's a neutron, I'm sure nobody said to him, "Oh my God, you've ended the planet. Now
Right.
New humanity is doomed." So it used to be the case that physics was something that was like interesting and fun. But now it's like the most deadly thing you can imagine. We fund our scientists as part of a complex cryptic arrangement worked out by Vannevar Bush that is now remembered by essentially no one. Vannevar Bush, Teller, Ulam, Feynman, Oppenheimer, von Neumann. It's like Indiana Jones is, an archaeologist with a bow tie, and then he's running around with a whip and, killing people. And
Right.
Okay, that's what physicists and mathematicians are. That's why we're funded. That's why the Department of Energy funds physics. It's not the Department of Energy. It's the Department of Nuclear Weapons. It's the Department of Physics. Boom, vroom, and zoom. This is who I really am. This is what I really do. And I will not mouth this narrative that all of my colleagues will mouth. Physics is interesting. Yeah, a lot of the time it's dull. Physics is international. Oh, really? Why do you think the American taxpayer is funding this international effort? Just to educate Chinese? For all I know, we're trying to sterilize the Chinese and the Indians with string theory. The Indians are some of the most aggressive string theorists on earth. And my question is, do we import them in such large numbers so that they'll go home and be ineffectual?
That's crazy.
What do you think the odds are that a scientist can say, my failed theory is the only game in town, and not get laughed out of town? Ed Whitten, you're full of shit. Who talks like that? You're the smartest person I've ever met, and you have not earned the right to say that your failed theory, your disaster of a catastrophe of a theory, is the most failed theory in history in physics. And you're saying it's the only game in town? Who died and left you kings, sir? Elon's a genius, and Elon is trying to replace scientists with grok. I said, look, I don't think SpaceX is Elon's space program. His space program is grok. Elon doesn't trust scientists for good reason, because they're weak. So he's building his own scientist from when we were strong. He's going to have it read the corpus of physics done by competent physicists who actually care about the physical world, so he doesn't have to deal with any of us. That's why he won't meet. It's not because he's not interested, not because he doesn't know. You can't engineer your way out of a science problem. You have to science your way out of it.
And what would be that science?
Post-Einstein, post-relativity. That's what I do. If I'm going to explore the cosmos, I don't want to I don't want to live in space.
So what are the alternatives?
The observers. The successor to space-time, I'm happy to predict this on your show, will be named the observers, which is a combination of not just using a 4-dimensional space-time manifold, but a 14 and a 4-dimensional space simultaneous. So if I want to go to a distant star, there's no way I'm going to just go really fast.
Right.
That's dumb. And I need an energy source, and I need to do things that we can't normally do. You have to jailbreak space-time. If Einstein is in force, we all die. If we go beyond Einstein, some of us will live and some of us will die.
And what would be the energy that you would need in order to do this?
So how do you unlock this? One is, maybe it's not that energetic to do these things. What's momentum in the time direction? It has a different name. We don't call energy time momentum, but that's what it is. So first of all, I don't believe that there's one direction of time. There's no arrow of time. That's not true. I believe that time is multidimensional. And each of those dimensions has a different kind of energy. So in other words, energy is unique because there's only one time dimension. But as soon as time has multiple dimensions, you can talk about multiple forms of energy. Just the way you can talk about momentum in the x direction, momentum in the y direction, or momentum in the z direction. So in part, what I'm trying to do is to jailbreak space-time. That's what I'm actually doing. And I'm doing it with zero support, with no confirmation that this is real, because something is controlling my entire community to make this funny ha-ha, just like Forbidden City was Jack Raper has gone mad. He thinks that there's a city in New Mexico where there's a mayor who's a second Einstein developing a doomsday weapon. Is that funny? What a loon, that guy. What an idiot. Ha ha. That's what's going on, Joe. Either we are become the stupidest nation on earth, destroying our own ability to do physics. We gave away the store. We're morons. That's possible. Or we're doing it in private.
And you feel like it's possible to hide all this from the general public?
Well, my point is you're not going to hide it. No. The same way they did it before would be spoiled by satellites. Right now, if you tried to do Los Alamos, you couldn't do it because of the satellites.
Right.
So it has to be hidden in plain sight. It has to look like something that it isn't. So if you asked me, let's imagine you asked me a different question. Let's imagine you asked me, Eric, nobody's willing to give you money. Nobody's willing to employ you. Nobody's willing to have you speak at their seminar, despite the fact that you have complete blue chip credibility. How would you organize a secret team to get control of our adversaries, the world, and the ability to traverse the cosmos? I sure as shit wouldn't build a chemical rocket company. That's dumb. But I'd do it as cover. And I sure as shit wouldn't do things in an open university department. Here's what I'd do. I'd build an organization that could rationalize billions passing through it with almost no footprint. Because what I really need is whiteboards and coffee and smart people and a secure campus and a story. That's all I need.
God, wouldn't you love to have access to what they're doing?
No, because I'm going to do it myself.
How are you going to do that?
Because I know really smart people, Joe.
Don't you need like insane amounts of money in a laboratory somewhere?
You know, it's funny. Like Sam Altman is racing, Dario Amodei is racing Elon Musk for superintelligence. So I asked myself, if you could have premium subscriptions to Grok, Gemini, XAI, Grok, Gemini, Claude, all of them. Mm-hmm. Or you could have Edward Frankel's home phone number. Which would you choose? I'd choose Ed Frankel's home phone number. So I get to call Ed Frankel whenever I want to. That's smart. Look, there are people that you don't even know about who are just terrifyingly smart, who allow me to assemble that team. That's what,
Is that literally what you're trying to do?
Oh, yeah.
And how are you doing it?
I don't know. I stayed with Ed for 5 days in Berkeley. I got him and another colleague who's also terrifying. I'm using Soviets, Joe. Ex-Soviets.
Okay.
Because those guys haven't lost the magic. And, I had Frankel and a guy named Misha Kapranov come down for 5 days to kick the shit out of my theory. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy. We're drinking vodka at like 10 a.m., having insane meals, and just working our asses off the way we're supposed to.
How'd it go?
Amazing.
What did they think about your theory?
So far, all systems go, Joe.
Okay. So,
In other words, the story. Can we just pull up? I just want to do this for my own reasons. Can we pull up the pinned tweet on my Twitter profile? Which, by the way, thank you for retweeting.
no problem.
Yeah. Love you.
Love you too.
Something is going on in New Mexico.
White House officials later noted that the FAA administrator implemented the surprise flight ban without notifying the Pentagon, Department of Homeland Security, or White House officials. That seems crazy.
This story doesn't hang together.
That part doesn't hang together
Well,
at all.
that's the thing.
The FAA implemented a flight ban without notifying the Pentagon, the Department of Homeland Security, or the White House officials. That doesn't even seem legal.
Joe,
But I don't know.
you and I both have at least 105 IQs. These are like 65 IQ stories. That to utter the words that are obvious to any one of us, like why were all of these super smart people hanging on Jeffrey Epstein's every word?
So weird.
Well, no, it's not weird. Have you ever noticed how interesting astrology becomes when it's explained to you by a woman in a really low-cut dress? Right? Suddenly it's like, Virgo? I never knew that. Wow. Oh, retrograde. That makes everything make sense. When rich people are around you, it has much the same effect. People blow smoke up rich people's backsides all the time. That is so insightful. That's what all these people were doing. We're all starved for funding because the Vannevar Bush arrangement has been welched upon. Vannevar Bush.
The truth sucks, and you're a very incisive thinker, and you have a way of elucidating things. Sometimes they're dark truths and realities that others don't. So I really appreciate your brain.
We're worried that you're going to use it to legitimize yourself. It's like, I'm going to do that. Of course I'm going. I have a PhD from Harvard, you stupid. I mean, like, you guys imagine I'm a podcast guest? Boom, vroom, and zoom.